Hi, my name is Joanne Swenson, and I am the senior minister at Church in the Forest in Pebble Beach. This is the 10th in a series of video messages that we call Light from the Forest, messages to inspire and help us through this time of pandemic. In the year 1348, the entire nation of France was being ravaged by a pandemic, the plague, the Black Death. But in a village of Provence, the little town of Toulon somehow managed to avoid the plague. In that town, there was a devout nun who was praying passionately that God would spare them of the plague. And in the midst of her prayer, she heard clear guidance from God about what they should do. And so she shared these instructions with the town priests. Although it wasn't yet Christmas time, the priests were to actually hold the Christmas Mass continuously for 3 days. And as is customary in a Christmas Mass, the worshipers would be praying then to the God that we know at Christmas time, a God who comes down and shares our humanity, a God who is born as a baby. And so throughout all of the rest of France, these other worshipers were praying to a God who was seen as absolute and almighty, a God who for some reason was punishing them with this plague. Toulon took a different approach to God. It prayed to God as a tender God, as a God who is creative and growing, who is responsive. They prayed to God as a baby. And Toulon was spared. The Wall Street Journal in the middle of May had an article that touched on these two very different approaches to God. The article was about the research of scientists who are documenting the effects of prayer on those who pray. And the scientists found that those who pray to God as an absolute, all-powerful being actually receive fewer benefits of prayer. In fact, for some of these people, they even feel anger and powerlessness after they pray. But for those who pray to God as a partner who receives their prayers and use their prayers in his work, they receive clear benefits. They felt a sense of support from God, and they felt profoundly connected to God and also to other people and the world of nature. So when we sit down to pray, we're faced with this choice. Do we pray to a God that we think of as absolute and all-powerful, to a God who has predetermined his plan and our fate within it? Or do we pray to a God who we see as responsive, a God who partners with us, who receives our prayers and uses those prayers in his work? William James had something to say about these two approaches to God. William James, back in 1909, said that those who believe in an absolute God actually find themselves in a very difficult corner, because they must look around them and say all that is the will of God, and that there's nothing they can do to change that will. And so that would mean for us that here in this pandemic, this is the will of God, and that there's nothing that we can do to change it. And so there is no reason to pray. But James said that for those who believe in a responsive God, our prayers are very necessary. In fact, God needs our prayers. There are consequences when we do not pray, that God uses our prayers, our thoughts and actions in his ongoing work. There is an urgent need for our prayers. And so we're faced with this choice, the absolute God who doesn't need our prayers, or the God who is responsive and to whom we dare not pray. Oh, back in 1348, that little town of Toulon prayed to a responsive God. And here we are in the year 2020 facing our own pandemic. Who is the God to whom you are praying?